invisible prince and the throne of destiny. Once upon a time, in the prosperous kingdom of Thin Vong, there was a wise and kind king loved by his people. The king had 3 sons, each unique in their own way. The eldest, Hai Long, wielded the power of fire, bold and ambitious, earning admiration as the strongest candidate for the throne. The second son, Sun Ha, controlled water, calm and reliable, always fulfilling his duties with quiet strength. The youngest, Min Kwang, was different. He showed no clear magical abilities and was often seen as weak and unworthy. People dismissed him, but the king treated all his sons equally, holding hope for Min Kwang's potential. As age weighed on the king, he summoned his sons and announced a series of 4 challenges to determine the next ruler: courage, wisdom, compassion, and true strength. The throne belongs not to the strongest but to the most deserving, he declared. Hai Long and Sun Ha embraced the challenge eagerly, confident in their abilities. Min Kwang, however, hesitated, feeling the weight of doubt from those around him. Yet, as the gates to their destiny opened, he knew he had to prove himself in the journey ahead. The day after the king's announcement, the 3 princes prepared to embark on their journey. Each was tasked with completing the first trial, retrieving the eternal flame from the summit of Mount Crimson, a treacherous volcano said to burn with unyielding fire. The one who could return with the flame would demonstrate true courage. Hai Long, confident in his fiery abilities, led the way, his steps filled with determination. Sun Ha followed, calm but cautious, relying on his control over water to counter the volcano's heat. Min Kwang, uncertain and overlooked, quietly trailed behind, ignored by his brothers and the court. As they ventured into the wild, the challenges of the journey quickly became apparent. Rugged paths and fierce beasts tested their resolve. Hai Long, using his fire magic, cleared the way with raw power. Sun Ha used his water magic to cool dangerous heat and provide relief. Min Kwang, with no visible powers, relied on his wits and careful observation, though doubt gnawed at his heart. By nightfall, the princes camped at the volcano's base. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. Hai Long scoffed at his youngest brother, saying, "How do you expect to survive this, let alone claim the flame?" Sun Ha stayed silent, though his eyes mirrored the same doubt. Min Kwang, despite their remarks, refused to give up. As he gazed at the glowing summit, he whispered to himself, "I may not have their powers, but I will find my own way." The first trial had begun, and so had Min Kwang's journey to uncover his true strength. At the break of dawn, the 3 princes began their ascent up Mount Crimson. The path was perilous, with molten rocks and rivers of lava blocking their way. Hai Long led confidently, summoning walls of fire to clear obstacles. Behind him, Sun Ha used his water magic to create safe crossings over the lava. Min Kwang, however, struggled to keep up, relying on his instincts and ingenuity to navigate the treacherous terrain. As they climbed higher, the heat became unbearable. Hai Long's fire magic allowed him to endure, and he pressed forward without hesitation. Sun Ha used his water magic to cool the air around him, maintaining his pace. Min Kwang, lagging behind, was drenched in sweat and nearly collapsed. Just as despair began to creep in, he spotted a narrow, shaded path winding through the rocks. While the route was longer, it provided temporary relief, and he decided to take it. By midday, Hai Long reached the summit first, where the eternal flame burned fiercely in a crater surrounded by searing heat. Confident in his abilities, he extended his hand to capture the flame. But the fire lashed out, burning him. Shocked and in pain, Hai Long retreated, unable to grasp the flame. Sun Ha arrived shortly after and tried to extinguish the flame with his water magic, hoping to contain it. Yet, no matter how much water he summoned, the eternal flame burned stronger, resisting his efforts. Frustrated, he too had to step back. When Min Kwang finally arrived, he saw his brother's failed attempts and hesitated, remembering the king's words about courage and wisdom. He observed the flame closely. Then, he noticed a reflective surface nearby, an ancient, polished shield. Realizing that the flame might respond to understanding rather than force, he carefully angled the shield to capture its light. Slowly, the flame leapt into the shield, glowing brightly but without resistance. As Min Kwang descended the mountain with the eternal flame in hand, his brothers looked on in disbelief. For the first time, they began to see their youngest brother in a different light. Though the journey had just begun, Min Kwang had taken his first step toward proving his worth. Triumphant yet exhausted, Min Kwang began his descent from Mount Crimson with the eternal flame safely contained in the reflective shield. His brothers, stunned by his unexpected success, refused to acknowledge his achievement and hastily made their way back to the royal encampment, leaving him behind. As night fell, the rugged terrain became even more treacherous. Min Kwang, drained from the trial, stumbled through the dark forest at the base of the volcano. Just as his strength was fading, he heard a faint rustling in the bushes. Alarmed, he reached for a stick to defend himself. But instead of a beast, a young woman emerged. She was dressed in simple, tattered clothes, her face smudged with dirt, but her eyes shone with warmth and intelligence. "Are you lost, my lord?" she asked softly, noticing his weariness. Min Kwang nodded cautiously. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Lin Chi. I live nearby," she replied. "I saw the glow of your flame and thought someone might need help." Despite his initial hesitation, Min Kwang accepted her offer of guidance. Lin Chi led him to a small clearing where a humble hut stood. Inside, she prepared a simple meal and tended to his wounds. As they talked, Min Kwang learned that Lin Chi was an orphan who had survived on her own through resilience and cleverness. "What brings you to this dangerous place?" Lin Chi asked as she handed him a cup of herbal tea. Min Kwang hesitated before explaining the trials set by the king and his struggle to prove himself. Lin Chi listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "Strength alone won't win these trials," she said after a pause. "Sometimes, it's the unseen qualities, kindness, wit, and courage, that truly matter." Her words struck a chord with Min Kwang. For the first time, he felt understood and supported. When morning came, Lin Chi offered to accompany him on his journey. "Two heads are better than one," she said with a playful smile. Though hesitant to rely on someone else, Min Kuang realized that her resourcefulness might be exactly what he needed. Together, they set off, ready to face the next challenge. For the first time, Min Kuang felt a glimmer of hope that he might truly prove himself worthy of the throne. With Lin Chi by his side, Min Kuang journeyed to the Temple of Wisdom, where the second trial awaited. The challenge was to solve an ancient riddle carved into the temple walls. The answer would reveal the key to the next step of their quest. Hai Long and Sun Ha, who had arrived earlier, were frustrated after failing to solve the riddle. Hai Long had tried to use his fire magic to burn through the wall, while Sun Ha attempted to wash away the carvings. But both efforts were in vain. Min Kuang studied the riddle carefully, recalling Lin Chi's advice to think beyond the obvious. Together, they pieced together clues hidden in the temple's design. With Lin Chi's sharp insight and Min Kuang's patience, they found the answer. True wisdom lies in seeing with the heart, not just the eyes. As the riddle was solved, the wall opened to reveal a golden key. Hai Long and Sun Ha looked on in disbelief as Min Kuang claimed the key, proving once again that intelligence and teamwork could overcome brute force. The journey continued, with Min Kuang growing ever more confident in his abilities. At Silver Lake, the third trial required retrieving a rare lotus guarded by a giant serpent. Hai Long's fire and Sun Ha's water magic failed as the beast easily countered their attacks. When Min Kuang arrived with Lin Chi, they observed the serpent's behavior. Realizing it was protecting a clutch of eggs, Min Kuang used his teleportation ability to safely move the eggs. The serpent, calmed by his actions, allowed him to take the lotus without harm. With the lotus in hand, Min Kuang completed the trial through kindness and cleverness, leaving his brothers astonished. After the success at Silver Lake, Min Kuang began to sense a strange energy within himself. Though still uncertain of its full potential, he practiced the teleportation ability he had discovered, honing his control over the power. Meanwhile, his brothers, frustrated by their failures, continued to belittle him. "You've just been lucky so far," Hai Long scoffed. Even Sun Ha, usually calm, muttered, "Let's see how far you can go without real magic." Lin Chi, however, encouraged Min Kuang to trust himself. "Your power is different, but it's just as strong," she assured him. Her words inspired him to persevere. As they traveled to the site of the final trial, Min Kuang's abilities began to grow stronger. Each use of his power felt more natural, and he started to realize that it was not just a simple skill but something far greater, a force that could turn the tide in ways his brother's powers could not. With the final trial ahead, Min Kuang felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time, he began to see himself not as the weakest but as someone capable of truly earning the throne. The final trial awaited at the Royal Colosseum, where the princes were tasked with defeating a shadowy figure said to embody their greatest fears. Victory would prove their strength and worthiness to rule. Hai Long went first, facing a fiery shadow that mirrored his own powers. Despite his skill, the shadow overwhelmed him with relentless flames, forcing him to retreat in defeat. Sun Ha followed, confronting a watery specter that drowned out his attacks. He, too, was unable to prevail. When Min Kuang stepped forward, the shadow took a different form, an indistinct figure embodying doubt and ridicule, reflecting the years he had been dismissed as weak and powerless. At first, the shadow's taunts shook him. But Lin Chi's voice echoed in his mind, "Trust in your strength, and you'll find your way." Summoning all his courage, Min Kuang used his teleportation ability to evade the shadow's attacks. With each move, his confidence grew, and his power intensified. Finally, he unleashed a burst of energy, vanquishing the shadow and stunning the audience. For the first time, the court recognized Min Kuang's true strength. Though the trial was over, the journey to prove himself had only just begun. With all trials completed, the three princes returned to the palace to present their results to the king. Hai Long and Sun Ha, still bitter from their defeats, tried to downplay Min Kuang's success. He only won through tricks and luck, Hai Long argued. The court, however, had witnessed Min Kuang's bravery and ingenuity during the trials. Whispers of admiration spread through the halls, and even the skeptical advisors began to see him in a new light. The king summoned his sons to the throne room, where he listened to their accounts of the trials. As Min Kuang humbly recounted his victories, he acknowledged Lin Chi's help, emphasizing teamwork and compassion over raw power. Impressed, the king declared that the final decision would be made soon. After careful reflection, Min Kuang, though nervous, held his head high, knowing he had done his best. Lin Chi's encouragement bolstered him, and he began to see that perhaps the throne was not beyond his reach. As the king prepared to announce his decision, chaos erupted in the palace. A powerful enemy army launched a surprise attack, breaking through the outer defenses. The guards and soldiers fought valiantly, but the invaders were too strong. Hai Long and Sun Ha rushed to defend the palace, each using their magic. Hai Long unleashed torrents of fire, but the enemy overwhelmed him with sheer numbers. Sun Ha summoned waves of water to fend off attackers, yet his strength faltered under the relentless assault. In the midst of the chaos, Min Kuang stepped forward, his heart pounding. Despite doubts lingering in his mind, he knew he couldn't stand by. Drawing upon his teleportation ability, he swiftly maneuvered through the battlefield, protecting guards and civilians alike. When the leader of the invaders stormed the throne room, Min Kuang confronted him directly, using his powers with newfound precision. He created a shield to block the enemy's attacks and struck with a burst of energy that brought the battle to an end. The palace was saved, and the invaders retreated. As the dust settled, the court looked at Min Kuang in awe. His bravery and strength had turned the tide, proving that he was more than anyone had ever believed. After the battle, word of Min Kuang's heroic actions spread throughout the kingdom. The people, who had once doubted him, now celebrated his bravery. Cheers erupted in the streets, and his name was spoken with admiration and respect. Hai Long and Sun Ha, however, struggled to come to terms with their youngest brother's newfound recognition. Hai Long muttered, "It was a lucky moment in battle," while Sun Ha remained silent, though the defeat weighed heavily on him. In the palace, the king called for Min Kuang. You showed great courage and wisdom today, the king said, his voice filled with pride. But more than that, you proved your heart is guided by the desire to protect, not to conquer. Min Kuang humbly replied, I could not have done it alone. The people who stood with me, including Lin Chi, gave me the strength to fight. The court, moved by his humility, began to see him as a true leader, though the final decision on the throne had yet to be made. Min Kuang's actions had already won over the hearts of the kingdom. In the quiet of the night, the king sat alone in his chamber, reflecting on the trials and the recent battle. Each of his sons had shown their unique strengths, but only one had displayed the qualities of a true ruler: courage, humility, and the ability to unite and inspire. Hai Long's fire was powerful, but his arrogance often clouded his judgment. Sun Ha's calm demeanor was valuable, yet he lacked the resilience needed in times of crisis. Min Kuang, though once underestimated, had proven himself through his cleverness, compassion, and unwavering resolve. The king's thoughts lingered on Min Kuang's selflessness during the siege. His willingness to risk his life for the kingdom and his refusal to seek glory for himself stood out. Perhaps the greatest strength, the king thought, is not in magic or might, but in the heart of a leader who puts his people above all else. With the dawn approaching, the king knew his decision was clear. The final step was to announce it, and he hoped his sons would accept the choice with honor and unity. The kingdom's future depended on it. The next morning, the king summoned the entire court, along with the 3 princes, to the grand hall. The air was thick with anticipation as everyone awaited his announcement. The trials had tested courage, wisdom, compassion, and strength. But now it was time to choose the next ruler. Standing before his sons, the king addressed them. Each of you has shown remarkable qualities. Hai Long, your fire is fierce and bold. Sun Ha, your water is calm and steady. Yet, a king must possess more than magic or might. He must have a heart that beats for his people, courage in the face of fear, and wisdom to unite, not divide. The king's gaze turned to Min Kuang. You, my youngest, have demonstrated these qualities. You faced ridicule, yet never wavered. You fought for your people with strength and humility. You are the one who has proven worthy of the throne. Gasps filled the hall, and for a moment, Hai Long and Sun Ha stood stunned, while disappointment flickered in their eyes. They both bowed before their father, accepting his decision. The court erupted in applause as Min Kuang, humbled but proud, stepped forward. I will serve the kingdom with all my heart, he vowed. The people, inspired by his words, cheered for their new king, a leader chosen not by power, but by the strength of his character. Following the king's announcement, the court and citizens of the kingdom celebrated the new heir. Min Kuang, though still surprised by the honor, quickly embraced his new role with humility and determination. Hai Long and Sun Ha, despite their initial disappointment, approached their youngest brother privately. You've earned this, Min Kuang, Sun Ha said sincerely. Hai Long added, though reluctantly, you proved us wrong. The kingdom needs someone like you. Grateful for their support, Min Kuang replied, I cannot do this alone. I need both of you by my side to guide and strengthen the kingdom. His words melted the tension between the brothers, uniting them for the first time in true solidarity. Together, the three princes pledged to work as one for the prosperity of the realm. Their cooperation inspired the people, and a newfound harmony spread across the kingdom. With the throne secured, Min Kuang began preparing for his coronation. By embracing his brother's strengths and the trust of the people, he set the foundation for a reign that promised peace, unity, and prosperity. The day of Min Kuang's coronation arrived, marked by grand celebrations throughout the kingdom. People from all corners gathered to witness the crowning of their new king, the once overlooked prince who had proven his worth through courage, wisdom, and kindness. Dressed in regal attire, Min Kuang stood before the crowd in the palace courtyard. Lin Qi, now an integral part of his journey, watched proudly from the sidelines. The king placed the royal crown on Min Kuang's head, his voice ringing with pride. Today, I pass the throne to a leader chosen not by birthright but by the strength of his heart and the purity of his intentions. The crowd erupted in cheers as Min Kuang addressed his people. I vow to rule with fairness, compassion, and dedication. This kingdom belongs to all of us, and together, we will make it thrive. His brothers, Hai Long and Sun Ha, stood beside him, symbols of unity and support. The moment marked not just the beginning of Min Kuang's reign, but the dawn of a new era where strength was measured not by power, but by the ability to bring people together. As the sun set over the kingdom, the people celebrated their new king, confident that their future was in the hands of a ruler who truly understood the meaning of leadership.